There. Okay, great. Okay, I'll take my 10 minutes and start on, so this is a um, working paper on student imaginaries of the futures of education in the Philippines. My co-authors here are Miss Pia, who is our current moderator, and Father Johnny Go, the Dean of the School of Education. So we essentially, the context behind this is that this is one of the first futures research studies that we're doing for educational policy under Ateneo RIFE. This really was based on us trying to understand how we can use futures research methodologies to influence policymaking. So the qualitative study examines Filipino students' images of the future of Philippine education and what these reveal about their concerns, fears, hopes, and desires, or specifically for educational reform. We wanted to prioritize student voice because they are rarely meaningfully involved in the development and implementation of educational policies, school planning, and vision setting. And so we wanted to give representation to their own aspirations for education. Also, there is a trend around education policy now, which is all about evidence based policy making, which tends to lean more towards quantitative data. I'd say they also do qualitative data, but we noticed among the EdCom studies that there weren't a lot specifically that really documented student experiences on the ground. So we felt that by centering students' lived experience and imaginaries, this future study offers a values based lens that complements existing policy research, which frequently forward technical and managerial perspectives for education reform. So our methodology was to do this through our futures design labs. We did 3 futures thinking workshops, which were conducted with 49 senior high school and university freshman students using futures and foresight methodologies. Because futures research tends to be more narrative based, so pakikipagkwentuhan, which is an indigenous Filipino method centered on shared storytelling as a mode of knowledge production. Also, the foundation for how ideas, experiences, and their imaginaries were collectively expressed throughout the process. Sorry, excuse me. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so our methodology had 3 parts to it. The first was we asked the students to make sense of signals of change. So we wanted them to really think about what was changing around them and reflect on the question: what is changing when it comes to the society, technology, economy, environment, and politics, which are impacting education, and what might the positive or negative impacts be? So this we use the STEEP framework for this qualitative analysis of signals of change. This was then followed by a open discussion and dialogue among the students, again, using narrative or pakikipagkwentuhan. After that, what we did was we shared with them prompts on transforming their signals into specific scenarios. What we did was we adapted Jim Dater, who is a futures scholar who created the 4 futures framework to activate student imaginaries by exploring 4 possibilities. So what we did was we already pre-wrote some prompts specifically for the 4 different approaches or archetypes of scenarios. So education steady progress, which is business as usual, education with constraints, and then the breakdown of education as another scenario, and then education reimagined. And then we assigned each of these scenarios to different tables per workshop. Once they're able to think about each of the scenarios and to reflect on what goes into each, we also provided them with activities that could help them land their narratives into worksheets. So we had a school day in 2050, which is like a storytelling worksheet that got them to write about what was the school day like. So we were able to really understand the context of their imaginaries, right? And then to land the specific imaginations on on what a news article might be like for that specific point in time in 2050, as well as an artifact, so a thing from a school. And also, we asked them to do, for some groups, like a student feature or persona, and how that could land in a specific place within the school, like a classroom or a lab, etc. So these are just some examples. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. So this is somewhat how we were able to capture their ideas. So each group had a narrative, had ideas on what was happening, and like a thing from the future school, like portals, or they had things like armors, um, given their concerns about geopolitics and, conflicts and tensions between China and the Philippines. So these are the examples. So after this, what we did was we went through thematic analysis to generate the key themes of, from the narratives and artifacts. And these are some of the findings that we were able to uncover. First of all, really the insights that we gathered revealed to us strong aspirations for educational futures, but a critique as well of the current inadequacies that they perceive in governance. So these are the key themes that came out. The first is the need for more learner agency, so student voice in the learning experience, but also more need for interventions that have to do with learner well-being, whether that's mental health, physical health, or relationship health. They also provided ideas on educational equity and access. They also talked about safety amid climate and political crises. So, as you saw, things like the armor was an example of that. In terms of equity and access, they talked about classrooms that could make room for persons with disabilities, for different genders, etc. They talked about concerns around digital security and transparency, specifically because of AI and its ability to scrape all your data. So they came up with ideas like AI blockers, for example, that spoke to their concerns around trust and safety with digital data. And then finally, they also spoke about narratives that had to do with greater student participation in school governance and decision making, where you actually had administrators, teachers, and students coming together to talk about the future of their schools. Um, so these were the key themes that came out, and as we were thinking about these, we wanted to land it at some specific policy implications. So we just put here that the futures policy research on Philippine education revealed what hard data rarely captures, because through the work of the likes of the Educational Commission, but also a lot of the policy research that comes out, which tends to take a more macro or, for example, specific economic views or operational implementation gaps. The perspectives of the students really reflected what impacts them directly when it comes to policy. So they point to some ideas that can enhance both policy and the policy making process. The first is the integration of student generated futures in policy design, um, which is counter to the current approach of a top down educational policy formation. Not to say that our education agencies don't do consultative groups, which they often do, but we felt like just the aspirations that the youth carry isn't often processed as part of that data. Um, the second thing is they also consider, so the youth also consider that the more transformative lever of education transformations are actually the political levers rather than technological. So we were surprised by this because in future space, usually when you think of the future, it's pretty much technology that leads the change, right, and transformation. And while we're seeing that here, we also saw that actually governance is a big factor. What the government decides, what policies are put in place, etc. And then they also spoke about their aspirations for well being and flourishing, which is oftentimes a counter to how education is really geared towards workforce, towards skills based development. And so the findings in the research pointed out to the needs, for example, for stronger mental health interventions, inclusion interventions, physical access and infrastructure that allows healthier experiences within learning or educational settings. And finally, it also gave us insights on this idea of how we should reframe governance as stewardship rather than just administration. So really looking at the impacts of long-term thinking on governance policies rather than just short-term tactical policies that address immediate concerns. So that's it for our research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marite. Now we move to our second presenter. This second presentation is entitled Building Future Sustainability Leaders, University Partnerships as Transformative Learning Platforms for Sustainability and Climate Action, to be presented by John Paulo S. Quitoriano.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning po. Thank you very much, Ms. Sophia. Am I audible? Thank you. Yeah. So let's start po. Again, good morning, everyone. I am John Paulo S. Quitoriano. I am a University Extension Specialist from the UPLB Biotech. So today I will be presenting our initiative or our project entitled Building Future Sustainability Leaders, University Partnerships as Transformative Learning Platforms for Sustainability and Climate Action. Now, let me begin with a question. Are we preparing our students to address the problems that they will inherit? Currently, as we have observed, no, like for example, like me, I'm from the northern part of the Philippines, sa Ilocos. It's been 2 weeks na umuulan na. So, probably because of climate change. So, climate change, food insecurity, biodiversity loss, and environmental degradation are no longer future problems. They are today's realities. Traditionally, next slide, please. Traditionally, traditionally the learning journey is simple. So basically, what we are trying to address this is we would like to give an opportunity for students to learn more to addressing our issues, because sustainability is not simply a knowledge. I think we believe in biotech. It is a competency, and competencies are developed through experience. So traditionally, next slide po. The learning journey is simple. So basically what we are serving right now, students learn, then they take exams, and then graduate, and then enter the real world, no? But once they graduated, actually the problem is that they face complex societal problems. And mostly today's problems are interdisciplinary to community-based. There are a lot of uncertainties, and it requires collaborative partnerships to address them. So we also believe that students need systems thinking, leadership, communication, stakeholder engagement, and innovation to addressing these problems. So for instance, climate problem, for example, let's say offshoot of climate change, a problem caused by climate change, let's say uh, low productivity of rice in certain provinces in the Philippines. It cannot be solved by one discipline alone. It cannot be solved by climate scientists alone. So it requires the cooperation or collaboration among different stakeholders. With this, what we are trying to do in biotech is to explore the potential of experiential learning for our students through partnerships. So instead of learning only inside classrooms, students learn by engaging with communities, local governments, universities, industries, and other stakeholders. So they encounter real problems, work across disciplines, and participate in developing solutions. So next slide po. So yeah, that's basically what I've said. So basically, what we are trying to what we will be trying to show in this presentation is how can experiential learning um, be used, no, in improving what our students can learn. So let me briefly introduce biotech. So UPLB Biotech, next slide po. Next slide po, please. So UPLB Biotech is an R&D institution. So actually we are not an academic institution, so we don't offer any undergraduate or graduate degrees. So basically we don't have any students. Please take note of that. But later on we will see how do we engage students. So UPLB Biotech basically is a R&D institute focused on biotechnology and applied biological sciences. Primarily our work is on the development of technologies and services for different sectors like agriculture, food, energy, and industry. Next. And with these R&D programs are actually anchored in our UPLB Agora, or our extension agenda, which covers 5 focus areas, as you can see in this presentation. And of course, these extension or this research and extension agenda is anchored on on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So for us in biotech, biotechnology is not simply about developing technologies; it's about making science relevant to society. And because of this, we created, next slide, we created 2 initiatives. We call it as Biotech Beacons and Biotech Liab. So let's start with Biotech Beacons. Basically, Biotech Beacons stands for Biotech Empowerment and Assistance of Communities and the Nation for Sustainability. What we want to do in here is that we will listen to the stakeholders, engage them, we identify problems together, and we could develop solutions. So currently, next slide, I'm implementing initiatives in 2 provinces in the country. We have in Kalinga and in Batangas. So in Kalinga, next slide, sorry, next slide po. In Kalinga, we are implementing initiatives. Next slide po. We are implementing initiatives. Next slide, sorry. And we are implementing initiatives in partnership with the provincial government of Kalinga, the Office of the Provincial Agriculturist, and Kalinga State University. As I mentioned earlier, we don't have any degree programs, so we don't have any students. But for this project, we were able to engage several students with partnerships, no, with local higher educational institutions like Kalinga State University. So through stakeholder consultations, we identified challenges affecting 3 important crops, not only economically but culturally, no, important crops: the heirloom rice, next slide, coffee, and gayunan, a local orange variety. So for heirloom rice, the problem, actually, and also for coffee, the problem is that there is low productivity. You know, in recent years, the trend is the yield they're producing every year is going down. Primarily because of several factors like climate change. They identified climate change actually during our stakeholder consultations, and their income is also decreasing because of the high cost of the inputs. Similarly, there are also emerging and re-emerging diseases and pests affecting their crops, and of course, there is land conversion. So for heirloom rice, we develop interventions, next slide, using biofertilizers and biostimulants because in Kalinga, of course, the main stakeholders there are the indigenous Kalinga farmers. All of them, most of them practice organic farming, so they do not use synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. So we tried using our biofertilizers and biostimulants, which are organic, and in the last field trials we conducted in the province, we observed productivity increases of approximately 30 to 50%. And this is already high given that we experienced a severe El Nino or severe drought caused by the El Nino. And then we also have some pests infestations in some of our areas. And then in the next project, we have also the Revive Gayunan. Gayunan is actually a very sweet local variety of orange in Kalinga. And the problem is that it is actually infested with many diseases and pests from roots up to its shoot. So what we did was to identify first the diseases and pests affecting local production. This is a collaborative effort of the local farmers, the Kalinga State University, the Office of Provincial Agriculturists, and our institute. Now let's go down south in Batangas. So in Batangas, we partnered with the La Salipa, the City Agricultural Office, and the local farmers association involved in one important crop, the Batangas Puro Pamintao, or the black pepper. Next slide. In this project, enhancing the productivity and resilience of Batangas Puro Paminta, we're trying to address the challenges caused by climate change, emerging pest and land conversion. So just would like to add, before we develop these projects, we actually conducted several stakeholder consultations. So again, the process begins with not with the technology, but with a community identified problem. So next slide. So as you have seen in our presentations, we have engaged with 2 local universities. The main reason is that, of course, technical expertise is important, but universities also provide continuity. The problem with, based on our experience, the partnership with local governments can sometimes be affected by changes in leadership and priorities. Pag nagbago yung mayor, usually their priorities also change. So that's why we have engaged with universities. And when engaging with the universities, we actually, this is where the Biotech Lab comes in. In LIA, we engage the students of these two universities, De La Salle and Kalinga State University, in appreciating biotechnology and using it to address real-world problems. So basically, the philosophy is simple. Students learn by trying to solve real problems. So basically, we involve the students in different extension and community works. We conducted student researches and student internships from these two universities. We only have a few minutes left. So next slide, please. So basically, based on our observation and then the evaluation from our students and the mentors, basically the students was able to learn the following competencies. For example, with the community immersion, they were able to learn more about empathy and social responsibility. Working with farmers, which is our primary stakeholders, they were able to learn communication and stakeholder engagement. And with the multi-sectoral collaboration, they were able to learn leadership and systems thinking. So next slide, please. So, with the community immersion, so we're able to, sorry, next slide. Yeah, so with, why should universities adapt the model? So basically, uh, other schools and universities are actually doing already this approach, but we would like to just emphasize that in this approach, students learn deeper because knowledge is connected to the actual people and the real problems. Second, communities become classrooms. Students develop empathy, cultural sensitivity, and appreciation for local knowledge. That's actually what we observe, no? And lastly, partnerships multiply impact. So education should not only produce graduates, it should produce solution builders. And this is particularly important for sustainability, because sustainability, of course, require people who can work across boundaries. So the next slide, please. So these are just some recommendations that we come up, no, from our team. First, we would like to encourage schools also to embed in experiential learning through internships or even community engaged courses. Actually, in recent years, we observed in the Philippines that there are fewer service learning programs primarily because of the incidents, no, sa mga field trips at saka ang hirap-hirap kumuha ng permit to go outside to learn. But we encourage universities to do this. Second, build long-term relationships. Actually, we signed memorandum of agreement with this institution for at least 3 years to continue to come up with solutions to the local problems. Of course, integrate SDGs into curricula. We always emphasize this with our students and our stakeholders. And of course, encourage interdisciplinary learning. We believe that real sustainability problems require different fields working together. And this is the last thing that we would like to recommend, that we need to measure impact beyond grades. Not only did the student pass, ask what competencies did the student develop, what changed in the community, and what impact did the partnership create. So we always emphasize it with our student researchers, student interns, and student collaborators that matters to our, we need to look beyond the grades, no? Kasi alam nyo naman, I think you're familiar also that most students right now are very grade conscious. And in closing, next slide, please. I would like to end this with this thought that the future of sustainability depends not only on better technologies, but on better learning experiences. So I believe universities have the responsibility to prepare students not simply to understand sustainability, but to lead it. So, but if we want our students to become leaders, we need to give them opportunities to lead, collaborate, experiment, fail, adapt, and solve problems. And we need to create this experiential partnership-driven learning environments. And lastly, to end my presentation, this is a closing statement. Schools should move beyond classroom-based sustainability education and adopt experiential partnership-driven learning where students solve real community problems alongside universities, governments, and local stakeholders. With this, you will be able to address many concerns and at the same time, parang dami nating hit the stones if we do this. And it also becomes a platform for transformation, sorry. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quitoriano. And now we head to our third and last presentation for the first set, entitled From Heaps to Systems, Assessing the EESG Sustainability Readiness of the UPLB College of Human Ecology Faculty and Teaching Associates. I would like to call on Ivan Angelo Castillo to present this.
Hello, am I audible? Thank you. Can I start? And thank you. Hello, good day everyone. I am Ivan Angela Castilla from the University of the Philippines, and I'm currently taking Bachelor of Science in Development Communication, and I'm representing the College of Human Ecology. It is my pleasure to present our paper entitled From Hits to System, Assessing the ESG Sustainability Readiness of the UPLP College of Human Ecology Faculty and Teaching Associates. Next slide, please. To establish our framework, ESG readiness refers to the degree to which an institution is prepared to implement, monitor, and report sustainability practices across the four ESG pillars. This means that ESG readiness is not simply about having sustainability-related activities. It concerns the institution preparedness to implement those practices, monitor their effectiveness, and report their outcome in a systematic manner. Next slide, please. In the higher education institution, ESG readiness extends to integrating sustainability across operation, governance, research, teaching, and community engagement. This is particularly relevant for the university because sustainability is not confined to physical or administrative operation. It can be also shown through the knowledge we produce, the way we teach, the way we govern our institution, and the way we engage the community. Thus, for the higher education institution, ESG readiness represents an institution-wide capacity rather than a single program or activity. Next slide, please. Within this context, in the College of Human Ecology in UPLP occupies a distinctive position. Its academic mandate is inherently aligned with sustainability, thus making the College of Human Ecology suitable for examining the ESG readiness. So the assessment asks how sustainability values and practice are reflected within the college's existing structures, processes, and institutional practices. Next slide, please. So at this point, we organize the assessment into specific indicators under the environmental and economic dimension. So for the environment, we look beyond the presence of environmental activities and examine how sustainability is reflected in the college operation and academic functions. On the other hand, for the economics, we focus not only on resource availability, but also in the college capacity to manage and sustain those resources. So for the environment and economic, this indicator help us to assess both existing practices and institutional capacity for sustainability. Next slide, please. We applied the same approach for the social and governance dimension, but this focus more directly on people, institutional relationship, and decision making. So for the social dimension, the assessment recognized that sustainability also concerns the condition under which people work and participate in the institution. The governance dimension bring us to the different but equally important question. How are these sustainability commitments supported and made accountable? Next slide, please. So for the assessment instrument, we use the key informant interview and document analysis to capture the participants' experience, and we also examine the 2024 ESG readiness report of the NISERP and EHFES by Agaral and colleagues. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, the left side show the key informant interview matrix, while the right in the presentation, the previous NISERP ESG assessment that we use as our reference for this assessment. Next slide, please. So after gathering the data, we organized the responses into codes and indicators and identified broader themes to allow us to move from individual responses to overall patterns in college ESG readiness. Next slide, please. Now I would like to present the result and discussion. So this finding provides the lens through which we can understand the 16 results. The assessment does not suggest an absence of sustainability values within the college. Rather, It points to a gap between having sustainability-oriented practices and having institutional systems that consistently support, monitor, and sustain those practices. Next slide. For the economic dimension, the result for it, we found out that 80% of the college budget comes from the national appropriation, making largely dependent on the governance funding processes and fund releases. So the college also lacks formally established emergency reserves and contingency plan and for economic disruption. In addition to that, teaching associate reported recurring stipend delays, sometimes lasting from several months for like 2 to 4 months to be exact. Overall, these findings highlights the concern in resource availability, financial resilience, and preparedness for economic disruption. Next slide. For the environmental dimension, the assessment found that the system for tracking energy use, emission, waste, and environmental performances remain fragmented and underdeveloped. Environmental policies also depend heavily on university-wide initiative, which limits the college's autonomy and localized accountability. So add to that, teaching associates were not consistently informed about environmental initiative and often rely on individual efforts and word of mouth. So for this result, the findings highlights that the need for a stronger system for communication, monitoring, and implementation of environmental practices. Next slide, please. For the social domain, the college has existing well-being, inclusivity, public service, and community engagement practices. However, the gaps in monitoring the structure make some practices culture dependent. So also that teaching associate experience workload inequity despite of formalized policies, highlighting that the gaps between having policies and ensuring their consistent and equitable implementation. Next slide. Finally, for the governance, ESG principles are reflected in sustainability programs, research, and value-driven projects. But this effort remained fragmented and lacked formal initiative and accountability system. So the college follow a university level governance and risk management protocols, yet the absence of dedicated departmental risk management system limits preparedness. Also, again, for the teaching associate they rely largely on self-regulation in managing professional ethics and boundaries. Overall, the findings highlights the needs for a stronger accountability, risk management, and professional support mechanism. Next slide, please. So, we ask ourselves, what is the value behind this report? So, the value of the assessment lies in making visible gap between existing sustainability practices and institutionalized sustainability system. So across 4 ESG report, we see that sustainability values and activities are also present. However, the finding consistently point towards fragmentation, informality, dependence on organizational culture, and gaps in monitoring and accountability. Therefore, the value of this report is not simply to identify what is lacking, but it provides an assessment to where institutional system can be strengthened. And this brings us back to our title of the study, From Hips to System. The challenge is to move from individual and fragmented sustainability efforts toward to more durable institutionalized system. Next slide, please. So this is the reference of our report. You may scan that for if you want to view our references. Next slide. Next slide, please. And with that, I humbly conclude my presentation. So I would like to end with our central message of our assessment. The college has already has sustainability values and practices, but the next step is to strengthen the system that connect, sustain, monitor, and institutionalize them again from kids to system. Thank you very much and maraming salamat po.
Thank you. And that was our last presentation for the first set. That was a very rich first set. I hope that you were all able to take note of your questions for our presenters. And at this point, I would like to open the floor for anyone in the breakout room to ask questions or perhaps share their insights or comments. Kindly use the raise hand function, or you may type in your queries in the Zoom chat. But before we do that, though, I just wanted to make sense of what we've heard so far to also perhaps aid the audience in crafting their questions. So while each study approaches the futures of education from different angles, I think there's an interesting thread that runs across them. So we started by asking what kind of future do learners actually want? Then we asked how can education help learners become capable of creating that future? And finally, are institutions actually capable of sustaining that future? So I guess I wanted to ask our presenters, and I understand that Miss Marite already has a question, but just a question to our presenters. If we want to move from imagining these futures to actually making them possible, what do you see as the most important area or direction for transformation in education right now? In other words, where should we be directing our attention and efforts if we want to create meaningful change? I'll open the floor for anyone in the among the presenters to answer.
I'll answer first. Thank you very much, Miss Sophia. Siguro po one aspect siguro of our education right now, no? Of course, again, I coming from an institute that is non-degree granting, so wala kaming students. But yung aspect siguro ng education, especially higher education, na pwede natin tignan is on internship at saka student thesis or student research. While we, of course, value the importance of basic research, then we would like to also encourage the universities also to look into how can the student researchers, kasi ang napapansin namin right now, what we're observing is that many students right now are really investing a lot of their time and money, no, sa kanilang mga student researchers and student internships. So what we are suggesting is that why not use these opportunities for them to not only gain learning, not only gain experiences, but also help address local problems. So kagaya nung ginawa namin in our areas in Kalinga and Batangas, actually, student researches or thesis of our students from Kalinga State University and De La Salle Lipa are actually, address some of the questions that that we are trying to answer na may kinalaman dun sa local problems nila with agriculture. So I think that's one way of yun nga, yung to answer the question. We cannot comment more on the curriculum or kung ano mga aspeto because we are non-degree granting. So again, to answer the question, I think we need to reframe our student internships and student research. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quitoriano. Anyone else from the presenters?
Yeah, I'll just share. I agree now with Mr. Quitoriano. I think it's excellent also the idea of experience-based learning through immersions. I think for change to move from education systems to move from visions of imaginaries into actual implementation, experiments like that are really helpful. So I think at an institutional level, there are different paces of change happening within our institutions. May mga areas na can be more agile, do these kinds of experiments like biotech to get the students really immersed in what it means to actually be solution builders. And then you have like Sir Ivan's, which is really about building the assessment infrastructure, no, or these kinds of indices that are very important. So different modalities, but to me, it's learning quickly from the ground that I think can help us, be a lot more agile and adaptive as change happens.
Thank you, Ms. Marite. And lastly, Mr. Castillo.
Hello. I would like to answer in by basing on our findings. So I think we should focus more on coordination, accountability, and monitoring those things. The colleges kasi they already has a sustainability practices, but again, they're fragmented. So I think rather than adding more programs, I think we need a system that connects the existing efforts and monitor the implementation and make responsibility clear and for us to be more accountable. And I think we should also focuses more on how to include everyone inside the institution to be part of the decision making and how we can move forward as one. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll be reading questions from the chat box, so please feel free to type in your questions. But the first question is for Mr. Quitoriano. What benefits do your learning immersions afford the communities or farmers, and how is the learning extended beyond the immersion?
Thank you very much, Ma'am Marite, for the question. Actually, I would like to share then also, especially in Kalinga, no, many of the students are actually farmers also. They are agriculture students, and they actually almost all of them are from farming communities. So their parents are actually farmers. They're also engaged in farming, which is quite good. So and of course, in these immersions, there's always knowledge exchange. So the students bring fresh perspectives, and the universities as partners then, and us na sa biotech, we give technical knowledge, but of course our farmers as stakeholders, they also give their live experiences, and of course their local knowledge, no. Beyond learning immersions, as I mentioned earlier, these students are actually part of the communities themselves. So talagang yung mga natutunan nila or nakakuha nila or talagang nagre-retain din, no, doon sa community at saka sa farmers. I would like also to add then that beyond the immersions, beyond the thesis at saka sa internship, no, again, as I mentioned in my presentation, these partnerships are long term, so more than 5 years, actually 3 to 5 years, yung kanilang duration. And in these times, lagi kami nag-engage na siguro every year may ibang estudyante lang yung na-engage, no? But since nga, as mentioned, medyo local yung aming attack on this, or sorry, local yung aming efforts on this. So talagang, kumbaga, kahit hindi na sila yung estudyante namin the next years na na-engage, tawag dito, yung mga families nila kasi ay farming communities. So parang be-benefit pa rin sila, nag-i-involve pa rin sila. Like for example, 2 years ago, we have this student from Kalinga na kahit graduate na siya, kasama pa rin namin siya ngayon. And then natuto siya. Actually, na-apply nila, yung nalalearn nila sa kanilang mga practice. Of course, not all our students eventually engaged no, sa farming after that, but based on the assessment naman ng mga estudyante, no, and based on the career din na pinili nila actually, many of them pursued career. Many of them actually went to government. Meron din went to research. And before kasi many of them are parang kumbaga in a way nagkaroon din ng change sa career career paths nila. So yun. And then lastly, to answer the next second question, beyond the immersion then, kahit na-graduate na kasi yung iba or even tapos na sila, kasama pa rin namin sila, no? They're still with us doon sa mga extension and community projects. Every time kasi kami bumabalik sa community. And nakakatuwa din no, pag may mga training kami sa mga farmers or meron kami activity, stakeholder consultation, they're also there. Nakakatuwa. Kahit alumni na yung iba, kaya graduate na yung iba. So, yun. Thank you very much po.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Quitoriano. Does anyone have any questions? Please feel free to use the raise hand function. I guess I'll ask again for the for the three presenters. So we've heard about universities working with communities, government, and other organizations. So what do you think would make these partnerships genuinely transformative rather than simply like another project or another program that an institution implements? Go ahead, Mr. Castillo.
For me, I think, sorry, man. Ayan. For me po, I think the most important thing that we should focus then on that is the being participatory, because being able to create a genuine connection to the community that we are making a project means that we are genuinely caring about what they actually need. So hindi lang po tayo gumagawa ng mga programs that would just make our institution, quote unquote, good, already have an activity, but rather we create a program that is more, that creates social change, to be exact. Because when people are part of the planning, when people are participating in the process of the activity that we're making or the project that we're making, means that um, we are genuinely caring about them. So um, I think we should focus. I think I really love that we should focus on that aspect, because means that we are bringing them with us, and they are really part of the change that we're trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. And hold on, I'm gonna read a comment which I think is related to what I just asked. So from Mr. Ricardo Bagarinao, this image is a clear indication that our educational system has not yet significantly influenced the mindset of our citizenry when it comes to environmental management, protection, or conservation. Do you think scaling up your initiatives can change this? Ms. Marita, would you like to say something? Sorry.
I think this is a classic case of weights of the past, right? You know that yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing about these inherited problems is that it will take time, you know, for us to be able to really see it through the system, and for learners, educators, the stakeholders of education to kind of operationalize and institutionalize some of these practices that I think are really excellent. um, I do think also on that point, one of those practices being participatory dialogues, that we also need to put mechanisms in place of what happens after people leave the room. Like oftentimes we have these amazing dialogues and they, you know, you convene people and then it's just left hanging. So I think part of participation also needs to incorporate mechanisms that continue to extend the conversation and to land those conversations into specific actions. But yes, sir, to your point on, you know, environmental management, ecological education, I think these certainly need to be given more focus more than ever in our curricula.
Thank you, Ms. Marite. Mr. Quitoriano, would you like to say something
I
before we
also agree with Marite. Again, thank you, Sir Bagarinao, my former boss at UPOU. Yeah, actually, although our initiatives are mostly on agriculture, of course, kasama pa rin naman yung environment, especially on the uh, promotion of soil health, actually. And then, of course, we also have another initiative, similar initiatives in environmental management under beacons. I would like also to share na kaya din siya beacons of biotechnology. At talagang kaya siya beacon sa biotechnology, that ito naman ang ibang perspective. The main reason is that because based on our observation and then previous studies also, when we hear about biotechnology, naisip ng mga tao usually genetically modified crops, GMOs, BT talong, BT eggplant. While I personally don't have issues with them as long as they're safe or what. But actually in biotech kasi, we don't have genetically modified organisms. And biotechnology also includes biofertilizers, biostimulants, and all those technologies, na traditional or conventional. What I'm trying to say is that actually with these initiatives, with after 5 years, with these initiatives po, what we are trying to do is actually parang kumbaga these efforts ay maging beacon or para maging examples ng on how biotechnology can be used to address problems. So ganun po yung parang kumbaga in a way kaya siya beacon of biotechnology. Actually, just to share din kasi talang tatlo kasi po siya, the GitHub, Liab, and beacons. The GitHub is the Tagalog term for, a Filipino term for spark. Liab is for flame. So parang kumbaga, yung Dagitab kasi is to spark curiosity for kids and young people. And then Liab is for high school, college, and early career professional. So from that passion, we would like to inflame it further to make it like a parang like a profession or sana career nila or gumawa ng solutions using biotechnology. And for beacons naman, let's carry that torch or that flame to address local problems. And later on, what we want is to set ito ang example na to kumbaga, scale it up para makita ng iba, biotechnology is working for agriculture, for environment, and for food, kung ano bang sector yan. To answer yung question nga ni Sir, yeah, although hindi kami directly sa environment, of course, ito naman ay connected. So kahit sa agriculture siya, we can scale it up to also address environmental management or environmental issues pala. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our first set of presenters. That's all the time we have left for the Q&A. We now move to our second set of presentations, starting with the implementation of nature walks to support socio-emotional learning and promote science literacy after 2 years of online learning, to be presented by Romina Valerio.
Good day, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Is the presentation already on? Okay, sorry, I cannot see unstable internet. But good day on behalf of the IBED Science 1 to 6 Department at Pare-Food Rose School. I am pleased to present our school classroom action research. Okay, that's the title, and you can see the names of my co-teachers. I am the Science 1 and 2 teacher. Okay, next slide, please. Is it on the next slide? Ayan, this is our shared history, our shared journey. So when our students returned to campus for school year 22-23, they brought with them the invisible burdens of prolonged pandemic isolation, compressed vocabulary, digital fatigue, and post-online learning anxiety. Sometimes they lack the social cues. Okay, so that pertains to the social emotional well-being of the students. And to heal their hearts and spark their minds, our department integrated regular forest school inspired nature walks right into our science curriculum. Next slide, please. So what is nature walk and what it is not? Okay. The core pedagogy is driven by learner-led inquiry that ties into academics, active hands-on experience, and an inclusive environment for all abilities. It is deeply rooted, it's organized, intentional, and inclusive learners. It is complex and intentionally designed, not a simple scroll, grounded in established educational philosophies of Steiner, Froebel, Montessori, Reggio Emilia. Okay, different names, but almost the same ethos. And structured around planning, observation, adaptation, and review. It is evolving, promotes internal discipline, has boundaries, and it is hard work. So the key outcomes are enhanced cognitive skills, including focus, curiosity, creativity, promotes well-being and stress management, and fosters a deep connection to oneself, community, and nature. Next slide, please. These are the 3 basic questions that we have in mind. Next slide. Okay, so the intervention is giving 3 to 4 nature works per term, or at least 1 to 2 sessions per month. But before that, before implementation, the implementation of nature walks, there has been an exchange of proposal and discussions between the heads, the principals, the training of teachers, which took 1 week, including the risk-benefit analysis and first aid training. And we also involved the parents in conducting this because after the pandemic, everybody is scared to go outside. And proper sanitation and disinfection of materials before and after the nature walks, and students writing the nature journals, and teachers documenting. So it's heavy on documentation. Okay, and then we involve the students and teachers in evaluating the program. Slide, please. Okay, so this is a collaborative process. Next slide, please. Okay, so the data collection included interviews, observations, records, and document reviews. So you see there in the picture, this is Gabi plant in our school garden. It's a small garden, but we have lots of native plants there. Next, please. Okay. Student responses were sorted by grade level, then compared across levels to identify themes, categories, and patterns. Using the Bronnenberg thematic analysis and basic statistics were employed to interpret students' responses. And the interpretation reads social-emotional benefits, enhances well-being, and supports emotional regulation, reflective thinking, and connectedness to nature. The academic impact involves a boost in science literacy by concretizing vocabulary and concepts via real-world observation, guided sensory questions, increasing curiosity, engagement, and deep understanding, and movement and free play strengthen peer collaboration. Next, please. So the result from the 5-point Likert scale indicate a very positive overall perception of the nature walk, average between 4.4 to 4.47 with low variability, revealing that students' responses were fairly consistent. Students reported that they want to have nature walks before taking a quiz in any subject. Okay, slide, please. Next slide. Showing the nature sample nature journal. Or is it only from my end that oh okay, there. So the reasons for liking nature walks falls into 5 major themes. First is enjoyment. Oh, sorry, the previous slide. Enjoyment. Connection with nature and spiritual appreciation, learning through exploration and discovery, sensory experiences, movement, and social interactions. Okay, so the sample journals you can see there, samples from different grade levels from my grade 2 student. So here in this activity, I asked them to group themselves according to the different types of plants, shrubs, vines, trees, and herbs. So this one, it says, I chose to belong to the tree group. We shared all our ideas. I like tree because it is big and strong. It gives us shade. Trees also prevent flooding. Their roots soak up water. My groupmates said they like trees because they give us fruits. All of our ideas are important. Trees are very useful to us. So all of these science concepts, they just came from students. And then the grade samples from grade 5 students. So I found a coconut with a red cocoon in it. The coconut with the red cocoon interests me with the most because I have never seen anything like it before. So that's a grade 5 student who has not seen that thing. And we have a grade 1 student also who did not distinguish that she is looking at 2 different types of plants because one is an epiphyte. So it's growing from a tree and she didn't know that it's 2 plants. And this is another from a grade 5 student. I enjoyed hunting for flowers with my group mates. It was so fun. We got to go outside while it was raining. So whatever the season is, if it's a scheduled nature walk activity, we go outside. My group found a flower that was so unique. Was screaming so loud. From the nature walk activity, inside the flowers we found with a microscope. We also cut into it. Some of the flowers are a bit sticky though. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so they are free to write their nature journals the way they like it. So one grade 5 student drew made an graphic organizer on how she understood. She was trying to group the animals that she saw. And she's questioning if whether the millipede and the earthworm are related. But the other insects, they have 6 pairs of legs, so they group them together. So Maya is a neurodivergent learner. She is diagnosed with ASD, and this is her journal. So she had a drawing, she had sentences, and she picked up some loose parts along the way. And then Mila naman is grade 2 student. I just have one question before we went for a nature walk. The question is, what question did I ask? And she wrote a lot of different questions. Yeah. We have an African tulip, an invasive tree species. So that's her question to that. So a lot of things come into play when we are outside. Next slide, please. Next slide. So critically, when logistical challenges arose like heat, sudden rain, or pesky insects, they didn't ruin the lesson. Instead, they became good entry points for teaching resilience, flexibility, and real-world problem solving skills. Next slide, please. So nature walks produce interdisciplinary projects that live beyond the classroom. Learning standards come alive for students by connecting learning to real-world issues and needs. They build student ownership of learning, drives achievement, and focus students on reaching standards-based learning targets. So it's good that here in the Philippines, grade Science 1 and 2 are not formally introduced. So okay. Yeah, we grade students based on their learning approach. Next slide, please. Next slide. We go to the other findings, and yeah. Next slide, please. So nature walks promoted scientific literacy, shared moments of exploration, enhanced students' confidence and emotional security in school, which is most important to us. Next, please. Next. Okay, next, please. Next, sorry. So can we go to the after action planning? So these are the sample responses from the students. We can skip that. Okay, so next, please. After 3 years of implementing nature walks in our school, we are already partnered with our barangay. So we take them. Where's the picture? We took them outside together with the barangay seedling group, and yeah, that one. The Philippine Forest Foundation, and we're doing nature walks in our community already. Sorry, I have bad internet connection. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Romina Valerio. We move to our second presentation for the second set, entitled Scholar Graduates, Competencies, and Challenges in Teaching Life Sciences, to be presented by Maki A. Soneda.
Good day po. Narinig po ba ako? Okay. So, good day everyone. I am Maki A. Suneda, and under the guidance of my thesis advisor, Dr. Eva B. Makugay, I am here to present our study, Scholar Graduates Competencies and Challenges in Teaching Life Sciences. SDG 4, or Quality Education, emphasizes inclusive and equitable quality education for all. However, without enough teachers, quality education remains out of reach. This connects to target 4.4 and 4.8. These goals provide the context of our study on scholar graduates and their role in teaching life sciences. The UNESCO Global Report on Teachers indicates that 44 million additional teachers are needed to achieve universal education by 2030. The Philippines faces a similar challenge with 47,546 unfilled positions in 2025. Multiple countries have implemented alternative certification programs and scholarships to attract graduates to teaching. For example, we have Teach for America, Teach First in UK, Singapore's MOE Teaching Scholarship. In the Philippines, we have the Fast Track Science and Technology Scholarship Act of 2013. It was enacted to support the implementation of K-12 program by producing STEM-qualified scholar graduates for teaching in secondary schools. This law allows professionals such as microbiologists, engineers, psychometricians, statisticians, and medical technologists to teach in-depth ed. However, finding in terms of job placement revealed that non-education graduates need teaching preparation and consideration of degree programs with professional education units. The DOST Region 1 records show that 13 RA 10612 scholar graduates were deployed as special science teacher in Ilocos Norte from school year 2019 to 2022, highlighting the need to examine the gap between subject expertise and teaching readiness. This aligns with evaluation findings of DOST on transitional challenges. In-depth ed, assessing teacher competencies through PPST is essential for ensuring quality education. We use the PMS, formerly known as the RPMS. This study examined the perceived and manifested competencies of scholar graduates and their implications for teaching life sciences in Ilocos Norte. Anchored on Albert Bandura's self-efficacy theory, the belief in one's ability to teach effectively shaped by the following: mastery experiences, vicarious experience, social persuasion, and affective state. The figure shows the relationship among competencies of scholar graduates, challenges encountered, and their implications in teaching life sciences. Using a descriptive case study, the research is conducted in Ilocos Norte. The study involved 19 participants, 3 scholar graduates, 3 immediate heads and 3 peers, and 10 students. One of the scholar graduates is an agricultural and biosystems engineer. Another one is a registered psychometrician, and the last one is a registered medical technologist. Although only 3 scholar graduates were focal cases, data saturation is achieved through triangulation with supporting participants. For the data gathered, scholar graduates were identified through the DOST Region 1, followed by purposive sampling of supporting participants. Interviews and focus